I'm joined now by Offaly chairman Michael Duignan to talk about, well, essentially, Michael, you picked the perfect year to come in as chairman of Offaly GAA. It must feel like you've an awful lot of plates spinning the way things are going. I mean, last weekend you had the football finals in Offaly. The hurling finals were supposed to be this weekend, but they're called off. What's it been like from a personal point of view?
I suppose, Shane, look, it has been very, I suppose, tough at times, very unusual. I think that's um, I think, coming in with, I suppose, the plans we had, you go back to last December, getting elected, and then we had about 3 months then of, I suppose, normality, if you could call it that. Now, that was fairly hectic as well because you're just in the door and you're trying to, I suppose, put structures in place with management teams and different officers and officials and committees that you have to fill and all that. And all that would have been brand new to me, I suppose. Like the first county board meeting I was ever at, I was chairman of the county board in January, like this year. So it's highly unusual background, but I suppose we're really getting great traction and getting a lot of people involved. And we had just started the process of a strategic plan, and we had planned for workshops around the county where we were going to bring in all the stakeholders. So all this, there was so much energy and so much happening and so many plans, and then it was knocked on the head, and the job became completely different then. And everybody has gone through an awful lot over the last 7 months, I suppose, at this stage, and we were no different. So it was the ups and downs, the start and the stop, and trying to get our fixtures, and I suppose the biggest thing was trying to just sort of keep in the moment that you don't know what's going to happen the next day. Like, this is the thing that I find, you're sort of trying to plan ahead, but at the same time, tomorrow morning or tonight or now in a half an hour, someone's going to ring about something with another problem and another problem. And so look, I've seen the really good side of people, seen the effort and the work and the commitment of so many volunteers on the ground. And then I suppose, it's then, I suppose, and then the frustrations and the anger and the disappointment, and then the triumphs, getting our matches played. And after everything, and we had the second lockdown, we needed one more week. If we had 3 hurling finals planned for next weekend. And it's really, at the end of the day, players are the most important. I think sometimes we lose focus in the GAA. There's so much else going on, but really it's about providing games programs, providing matches for our players, and to do all we've done, and for all the players and the work they've put in, to lose that, at such short notice was a very, very bitter disappointment, I have to say.
Yeah, because the CPA, the Club Players Association, have released a statement, and included in that is, at this time, in light of the GAA directive on Monday, October the 5th, we are pleading with the GAA Management Committee to allow outstanding adult championships to be completed behind closed doors. Now, obviously, we've had the situation with Dungarvan, who've apologised for allowing a player, when he subsequently tested positive. We've seen the celebrations with Blackrock after their county title win in Cork, and obviously they're not the only ones. I mean, anecdotally, we've all seen on social media, Instagram, whatever it is, players celebrating excessively, parishes celebrating excessively. What do you think of that from the CPA? Do you think, like you as Offaly chairman, do you think you should be allowed to finish out?
Well, I do. And look, I think, first of all, to take account, you're 100% right. There has been a few breaches here and there. Obviously, there has been. And there's no point in saying there hasn't been. But in general, I'd have to say, that we would feel, particularly, we can look at our own county, that we have tried so hard to do everything, and clubs have really bought in. And, I was in contact with the GA on Monday. I was in direct contact with John Horn on a couple of occasions on Monday. And they're in a really difficult situation as well. They're trying to look at the bigger picture. I do think that, that maybe could have waited. I think there definitely was a reprimand needed to certain sections, and they could have issued a strong statement. And I think you have to have sanctions as well. It goes back to the same thing, if you do breach. But to go back to your question, I was in contact. We wrote to Croke Park yesterday morning officially looking for an exemption under decision, and we outlined our protocols that we would enact on match day. We got our six clubs gave undertakings in writing that they would follow all guidelines, that they wouldn't have any even team photos, team huddles, no after match functions, and we got all that together and sent it up. And unfortunately, yesterday we got a response that it wouldn't be taking place. And I just, particularly, as I say, for the players, and particularly, I'm not, again, there's Senior A, Senior B and Intermediate. I'm not demeaning the Intermediate, but the Senior A hurling final is a massive, and massive competition. St. Rhinus and Kilcormac Killahy have been the two standout teams, and they've worked really hard and improved as years gone on. And the club championships have been, I think, in every county. And particularly, I saw some of them at the tip final was probably one of the great games. But right across the country, hurling and football, like they've been fantastic. And we've seen what difference the county players being with their clubs has made at all grades. I'm talking about from under 15 up, under 13, even these development squads. All these players are with their clubs. They lifted the standard in terms of preparation, training, but also, they brought a lot of the professionalism from the county scene, nutrition, etc., back to their clubs. And you can see the buy-in even in small clubs all over Offaly. So we've had wonderful club championships, and just the players to be, taken away. And we wanted 3 hours behind closed doors with strict protocols in place. I don't think it's too much to ask. So we are very, very disappointed.
Yeah, because I see it's level 3 now, and obviously Offaly, Kildare and Laois had that lockdown, and that slowed up your championships. Whatever about the real life issues going on with COVID, just in terms of we're talking about games alone, that slowed you up a few weeks. And I think now the whole country's at level 3. Now the GAA decided to suspend stuff before that was announced. But like 2 weeks beforehand, I played in the county final at level 3 in Dublin. So from my point of view, it just actually seems desperately unfair on players that they can't. And of course, like, COVID is an issue that's not going anywhere. But at some stage, these games are going to be played. And if you're going to get clubs to do full buy-in, I just think it's unfair. Do you think actually, as well as that, do you think that clubs have the power to sort of put a firm message across their parishes, lads, you really can't go celebrating and messing around after these games? Do you think that, like, if that strong reprimand was put out by the GAA, that clubs and parishes and players would listen?
Yeah, well, I think they would, which we have done. But look, it's fair to say in society it was opening up more. People are out and about, people are back to work. There was more socialising going on, albeit in most cases in a compliant manner. So there was always going to be, and look, we've all been young and won championships, and there's an exuberance there, particularly after the year we've had. I think these championships would mean an awful lot to people in the year that's in it. So I think that it's disappointing to see some of the scenes that we saw, and I think most places were winning, were going away, were doing things. Maybe the players were getting together, but they've been together all the time anyway in training or whatever. So it's a fine line, and I do agree. I think last weekend didn't show the GAA up in a good light. I think the GAA probably thought there was maybe a level 5 coming or something like that, and they kind of acted maybe slightly ahead of when they should have. And look, this is not a criticism really. I think everybody's under so much pressure, and GAA headquarters, like, day in day out, and the COVID advisory group and the work they've done, and the work, I suppose the structures they put in place all along that allowed us to open up in a safe manner, and the compliance was, as you say, was excellent. But I definitely think we got this one wrong. Just for those counties, you mentioned that 3 weeks, like, we already had that. We lost 3 weekends, at Laois did and Kildare did, that obviously set us back, and we did fantastically well to get to where we got to. Dealing with issues on a day-to-day basis where clubs are contacting and saying, look, we have somebody might have it, or close contact, or this or that, and we still had to try to keep our fixtures going, and you were making maybe unpopular decisions at times by our CCC. So we got that far, and I just think, sometimes if you make this announcement, it's very hard to roll back on it. And I was pleading with John Hort to say, look, John, I understand in the broader sense where you're coming from in terms of we can't have, the scenes that we saw last weekend. We can't have clubs doing things like Dungarvan did. But we have to, at the same time, be able to say, well, look, you didn't do anything wrong over here. We're all being punished. And it's like suspending a player now for 2 months, maybe, for no reason. And we're trying to get lads back with county. And it's just huge frustration and anger on the ground and people don't see in the background, I think, the work that, the CCCs of this world. I wouldn't, be honest with you, as a player, I often said this, I had no idea what people did, but I know now what they did. I know over the years, I've been many years involved in committees now in backroom, and but the work that they do and the pressure on a daily basis, and these people are working in other jobs, and they're trying to spend all day, every day, supporting their counties and their clubs. So I think it's very, very disappointing that we've ended up in this position. So look, can't really say any more about it. Only, party would be saying we can follow government guidelines and NEFIT guidelines. Will we go ahead and play them anyway? But you can't. At the end of the day, you can't do that, because we have to have governance and we have to have rules, and they're set down now, so we have to follow them. But I found the last couple of days very, very frustrating from that point. After everything we've been through, give us that one weekend. And at least we've that done. And now let us move on to our county, see if we get there and see how that goes. But this uncertainty now has left the 6 clubs involved in Offaly very, very unhappy, and the players, particularly as I say, left in limbo.
And like, you know, you're talking about talking with John Horan at the top level of GAA, and then even, you know, within Durrow where you're a club member, you obviously, it must have been a very stressful few days that Shane Curran kind of announced that he was stepping away the eve of the County B football final against Gracefield. And obviously he put out the tweet, we're either serious or not about COVID. You then said on the record maybe he wasn't aware of all the facts. It must be very stressful from a personal point of view going through all that stuff, both at the top and the club level of GAA.
Well, look, it is, and like I live about 200 yards from the pitch here in Durrow. I'm at home here now, and my sons are involved in the club, and I was chairman of the minor club for 7 years and have coached them to win a couple of minors and under 20. And like all clubs, there's complexities. We have an underage setup where Ballymere and Durrow combine, and at adult level then the two clubs are separate and completely separate and near neighbours and great friends, but there's 135 years of rivalry there as well, and so it brings its complexities. And look, I was out all day Saturday, and being honest with you, I was at the minor county final Saturday morning board, then I came back to Tullamore. We had the junior and the intermediate football final, so I got home around 6 o'clock, and you know, longish day, enjoyable to see our finals being played and all that, and looking forward to the county finals on Sunday. And I had been aware, obviously locally, that there was an incident, that there was a case during the week. One of our junior players had tested positive, and his brother then, who was the goalkeeper on the football team, he got injured on Tuesday night playing under 20 hurling. We had a semi-final on Tuesday night. I was involved with them as selector with the team, selector coach, and we're beaten by a point in a savage game. So with that going on as well, like, you're dealing with all the other things, but still I'm involved with the club as well, and Brian was captain, and look, we had a great game. KK beat us in the end. So we were dealing with that. So he was injured as well, but he had been tested and his result came back negative. And because the knock-on effect, if this player had come back positive, he had been playing Tuesday night, and it could have had a huge knock-on for the team and for everybody. So that was cleared up, lucky enough, and he was isolating at home. And then we had no contact officially from the club. We have a brilliant COVID officer in the county, and it was 3 o'clock, I think, on Saturday when he was contacted by Durrow in the first instance, and officially about any COVID situation in the club. And it kind of went on from there. And I was speaking to the chairman of Durrow at about 7 o'clock, and he was saying, look, that they weren't going to play and that type of thing. And I said, I said, you're not playing, or are you looking for postponement, or what are you doing? So at 7:30, I think, then a letter went in from the club, from Durrow, into the CCC looking for a postponement. And the CCC virtually met or spoke, and they turned it down. I'm living in the parish and I'm very much involved in the club, but the CCC are independent of me, and I put those people in place to do a job. So they went through the facts, and I don't know where or how. I think at about 11:15, Shane Curran was informed by the club then that they were going to go ahead with the match, and he obviously wasn't happy with that and put out his tweets. But he was referring to timelines during the day and things like that I don't have clarity on, and still don't as of today. But I spoke to the player in question privately. I know him for years. He'd be a teammate and lad I've coached for many years, and I spoke to him on Sunday morning, and he assured me that he'd got a call from the HSC to say he was a casual contact, and but he stayed away from the match as a precaution. And the club met the players an hour or two before the match, and the club didn't want to play the match. I think even though they had said the night before they were playing the match, but the players said that the players insisted on playing the match, and they were prepared to go ahead on their own if they had to. So the management team then came, Decky Meehan, who's living in Durrow now as well, and a couple of Jerry Murphy and Kevin Ward, two guys very involved in the football in the club over the years. They got together and took the team and look, they produced a brilliant display and won. So that's, you know, I kind of know what I know, and Shane or the club might have a different interpretation, but based on the information that the county board had, we had a positive case of a junior player. His brother was a close contact. He was tested. He was negative, and the line was broken, and we had no other information. And if the third player we based the decision, to be fair now, on the third player being a close contact, because that's the information we were given at the time, and we said he has to step away as well and be tested, and we can't second guess what's going to happen when his results come back. If they came back during the week positive, we'd have to deal with that. But I believe that's a negative case anyway at this stage. So look, it was very tough. It went on from 6 o'clock Saturday evening until about 1 o'clock in the morning, and then it started about 7 o'clock Sunday morning till about 12 o'clock again. So and then had to go in and the 2 matches and all that and how it goes. So it adds pressure, but look, you're in the job, you have to do it.
So you're satisfied, like it's very different to the Dungarvan case where a guy was waiting the result of a test, was involved anyway. You're satisfied that everything was done right from an Offaly point of view?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we followed the guidelines very, very strictly, as we have to do, and you can only deal with the information and the facts that we were given at the time, and so that's what we did. So no, we're 100% that we were compliant with everything.
And just even with, Fermanagh and Armagh having to stop all GAA activity and training there recently, Fermanagh just announcing it today. You as chairman in Offaly, obviously they're in the 6 counties, which is in a different jurisdiction, and there's obviously a lot of cases in Northern Ireland at the moment. But you as Offaly chairman, does that alarm you when you see this going on in other counties?
Look, I've been trying very positive about trying to play our games throughout all this, just for so many different reasons, and for our players and for society and for everything. And I've always said, look, let's proceed once it's safe to do so and keep doing it. And my view on the inter-county is very similar in that in November and December, if we can have our matches, it's going to make a huge difference to us all. The long evenings are coming. If we're locked down, if it's level 3, level 4, if we can have, well, I don't know if level 4 we can proceed, but if we can play our matches, but there is difficulties around that, obviously massive difficulties, logistical difficulties, training, lads back in college, travelling from all over the country. But I suppose a few changes that they can shower and maybe they can change. But like it's going to take, I think, at this stage, looking at the numbers and looking at everything, it's going to take, I think, a lot of luck as well as everything else for all the matches to proceed. And I suppose the worry you'd have is like we had last weekend here in Durrow. This sort of thing erupts the day or the night before an inter-county match. If it's a Munster final or Leinster final, whatever it is, how is it dealt with? Or if cases emerge during the weekend, it might be just. See, this has all been looked after by volunteers, and so there's a massive structure around it, but there is huge pressure on everybody to deal with everything as it arises, and it's just the more you see it and the more it takes out of you every time there's a case. And this is like we had this high profile thing last weekend, but this has been going on for weeks and weeks. Like you get a call, there's a case. It's not linked to GAA activity, but it's a case in the club. And just close contacts. We had 2 clubs then that the players were all deemed to be close contacts, even though they were trained in an outdoor setting, which the HSE are entitled to do. They can look at every case in now all those. I think there was 42 players in one club and 37 in another club tested consequently out of 2 positive cases, but all of them came back negative. So I think it gives you confidence in the outdoor activity as well, that these once they're outdoor and there hasn't been no direct case linked to GAA activity, which is very positive, but there is cases all over the place, and there's as far as I have one son gone back to college now in Dublin, I have another lad due to go to Dublin, so they're going to be mixing in different circles, they're going to be coming home. You're kind of saying to yourself, no matter how careful you are, is it a matter of time before you're going for a test yourself? Because by the nature of it, at some stage I think it's inevitable. So it's trying to proceed under that and keep everybody safe, and then the benefits of doing it are still massive in my view. So I think we have to try, but yet at the same time, like we did here maybe 2-3 weeks ago, we decided to suspend underage activity for 5 or 6 days because we couldn't get a handle on what there was a case here, a case there. There was a lad maybe training with a minor Offaly panel, and lads could be going back to clubs all over the county. So you have to take an overall view. The case came back negative. We were a little bit unpopular with a few clubs for cancelling a few matches. But we had to base it on the information that we had and the potential for what could happen if we got it wrong. So you're trying to deal with that as well as all the other day-to-day issues. Number one being financial, because I think that's the big one coming down the line when this all settles, is how we're going to come out of this and get into next year. Like we get through this year, I think, with a bit of support from the GAA, we'll just about, I'd say, and losing the gates was massive. But how we plan and proceed and do the things we want to do in Offaly, to get back to coaching in games, to get back to the GPO model we want to introduce, to get back to the plans that we have. When will we ever be able to get back to that? I don't know.
Do you fear for the future of certain county boards? I mean, it's in the past the GAA could maybe bail out certain counties that were struggling because they were maybe bringing in plenty of money. But the GAA has obviously brought in far less this year. So like going into the next year or two, like not only will some counties be disadvantaged because they won't have the money to prepare that others will, but just even hitting the wall as a county board, that must be a big concern for a lot of counties.
Yeah, well, I don't know now with the influx, but every county, no matter how big they are going to have a huge loss this year. Some of them can carry that from reserves. You say the bigger counties, Dublin, I think, made 2.7 million profit or something last year, but most counties are operating on break even or loss every year, and don't have the reserves. Or a lot of the medium to small counties, so they are going to really struggle. I think there's going to be there's definitely going to be a restructure of how things are done in terms of, we get on to maybe the split season or shorten the inter-county season, shorten the amount of, I've been saying this for a long time, that there's far too much training for the amount of matches, and so there's definitely going to be a huge scaling down, I'd say, of operations. But the one thing, Shane, I think is very important is that players aren't the ones that are hit. Their expenses have been cut fairly radically now. Like, all the players they were getting a fairly decent mileage and a few bits and pieces along with it. That was some reflection on the effort and the time that they put into it. This is where I would differ with the GPA. They were saying, look, they're doing 30 hours a week. And my argument was, they shouldn't be doing 30 hours a week. That's what you should be getting that down to 15 or whatever is manageable. But what it looked like to me was, if we look after the players well enough, we'll get them to do 30 hours or 40 hours, because we'll give them the expenses and we'll look after us, we'll give them a grant, we'll do that. To me, that was the wrong way. But I still think we need to look after our players. That we shouldn't be looking at the first cut. The players' expenses were cut from about 65 cent down to 40 cent or whatever it was. And to me, that's they're barely able to pay their diesel, I'd say, coming down, or the wear and tear. Like that, to me, was the wrong thing. I think we should have tried to maintain our players' expenses, and then look, maybe the money is not there. And at the same time, I think if we are remodeling, we have to make sure that the players are not brought back to the old dark days when I played, where it was 10 pence a mile or 12 pence a mile or something like that. And there's too much being put into the game now.
And then just finally, heading into the Christie Ring against Kildare and in the football championship against Carlow, do you think the teams been able to prepare okay under Michael Fennelly and John Maughan?
I think they've been seriously affected. There's no point saying they haven't. The two of them have been so practical and so easy to deal with, I have to say. Like, John Maughan has vast experience, but there was no demands. Like, we were very compliant with our training. There was no training. There was no meetings. There was no medical assessments. There was no nothing from day one until we were allowed back. And it's great to be able to say that. But it'd be very hard to do that if you had senior managers badgering you on a daily basis. There would have been a little bit of difference of opinion here and there with different things, and we've underage managers as well, and everyone is doing their best. But our priority was to try to get our club programme completed. The lads worked around that. When they got back with small numbers, they worked away. They were in touch with their players when they could. And so I think, look, it's an unusual year, and we're getting to a couple of weeks. I think Michael Fennelly was very supportive again of the county finals going ahead next weekend, even though, look, he was trying to get lads back, but he was only giving them 2 weeks. But they were very happy with the way it was done. Was it ideal? No, far from ideal. But the only thing is, the standard of our club championships, in my opinion, has been very, very good. As I mentioned earlier on, with all, with everyone trying. So the players are going back. The one thing, I suppose, is they've had a lot of matches, and there is niggly injuries and things. That was always going to be the case. So I would say the couple of weeks that have left, it would only be about trying to get lads, sharpened up and get their injuries cleared up and get the best team. But they understood that, and it's knockout competition. So look, very big for the county, obviously, to qualify out of the Christie Ring. Our footballers have Carlow. To win that, it's Kildare at home. But so we'll see where that goes. But I have to say that the two lads, it's been very difficult. John Maughan has been here for a while. Michael Fennelly coming in and trying to manage in this scenario, and hugely supportive. And the players, they had some great crack online. That they had that fundraiser, the virtual karaoke, which was brilliant, and raised huge money for local charities. So, I think we're very lucky to have people of the calibre, and their playing backgrounds was very much bought into it. Like the Fennellys, I'd say they'd hurl every day if they could, never train, and so he was very happy to see the club matches going ahead, and he understood the competitive nature of the matches will bring on your players. I've been beating this drum for a long time in Offaly, that at underage level and everything, we've been cancelling matches to allow development squad. I'd be saying player matches have less, player championships is the best way to prepare your players. Get 3 or 4 good matches into an under 15 or under 17. He's going to be a far better player in June than he will be with just training. And I think people like John Maughan and Michael Fennelly understand that because they have been there themselves. So no, look, it's not ideal for them, but they've really bought into what we've tried to do as a county, and hopefully next year we might be able to give them a bit more time and develop more players within the county system, and hopefully we'll have the 2 of them back next year.
Absolutely. Well, Michael, thanks very much for joining me. Best of luck to the 2 teams in the inter-county season, and hopefully you get your club championships finished. Cheers for that.
Please God, thanks Shane.